Welcome to Financial Freestyle. I'm Ross Mack, and this is sponsored by Vanguard. Welcome to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. I'm your host, Ross Mack. No matter where you are in your financial journey, you could always learn more, and that's why I'm always talking to some of the most informative people, inspirational people in the world of finance, helping you get to a bag. And today's no different. I'm talking to Adam Nash, CEO and co-founder of Daffy. Adam, how you doing today?
Good. It's great to be here.
Thanks so much for coming, man. I know you're coming from the West Coast, so thanks for that. But also, right to the people, who is Adam Nash?
As you said, I'm the CEO co-founder of Daffy. I've had a long career in technology. I actually started at Apple early on as an engineer, and I've worked for a large number of startups and famous companies along the way, but very passionate about building products that actually make a difference for people and a real passion for personal finance. And I just feel like it's been an amazing run the last 10 to 15 years where we've been able to use technology to create better products to help people spend better, save better, invest better, and with Daffy now, give better.
I love it. So let's kind of go back, right? You're a venture guy from Silicon Valley type vibes, right? And something that you talked about was, and obviously we talked about this offline, but you're not just a tech guy, right? You also a person that is adamant about helping people understand personal finance. In fact, you lecture at Stanford. So when you start thinking about fintech and the democratization of access to information, right? How are you seeing SoFi actually change people's access to information when it comes to personal finance?
Yeah, well, I think, it starts with the basics of recognizing that it's a problem. I mean, the reason I teach the class at Stanford on personal finance is because I wish that class existed when I was in school. I mean, if you don't teach personal finance to people, you can't expect, it's not an IQ thing. You can't just expect people to learn it. Mostly what they're going to learn and internalize is from their parents and their friends and the friends of their parents and the parents of their friends. And the truth is that's a really bad set of information to be learning from. And so I think that the great thing about the web, of course, and all these technologies, they've brought a lot of information to people. Originally, it was just basic content. Now it's shows like yours and other things people can subscribe to and learn from. But the great thing about fintech is we actually can build better products and services now, right? We don't have to just tell people what they should be doing with their money or how they should treat their money. We can actually build tools to help do it for them or help them learn along the way as they make these decisions. And so if you're passionate about helping people with these problems around money and personal finance, I think it's a wonderful time to be building, and it's a wonderful time to be learning about personal finance.
I love it, man. I'm clear as day, right? Very adamant and passionate about personal finance and actually helping people, become better with their finances and their money. And so if you were, just one lesson that you can leave us with that you are, speaking, if this was a Stanford class, what's one personal finance lesson everybody needs to know?
Believe it or not, I mean, in the Stanford class, right, the students are fairly smart. Like there's not a problem with IQ in the room, et cetera. But a lot of the students in the class, some of them are the first in their family to go to college. Others are majoring in computer science or engineering degrees. They know they're going to make some money when they graduate, and they don't want to mess it up. But often I just have to convince them to start slow. The basics are really important. I can't tell you how important it is to just spend less than you make, right? Everyone wants to jump to how to make money in the market or do this, or it's like, slow down, right? Spend less than you make. I'm a big advocate for emergency funds and having a little bit of a cushion. And if you don't have one, building that up. Then you get to the basics of, investing and aiming for financial goals in the future, keeping expenses low and, having some humility about your ability to kind of magically pick the winners. And then we talk a little bit about taxes and the other realities. We even talk about, what it means to manage money as a couple versus an individual, which is another problem that most people ignore. And yet it turns out it's a very hard problem. And money breaks up a lot of relationships, both married and otherwise. And so I think if you look at the content, I put it online for free. If you look at the content, there's no rocket science there. These are not, this is not difficult math. The hard part is to get people into a zone, in my experience, where they have enough humility to say, like, just because I'm an expert in something else doesn't mean I'm an expert in handling money. and having kind of that mind to just learn the basics of how do you lead a healthy financial life, and what does that even mean?
That's honestly, that's very interesting. You don't hear that too often when you start thinking about managing money as a couple, right? There was a statistic that came out where it was saying like which states and cities are, the most expensive to live in. And when you actually take in like the average income of those states, like, the average person can't even live in like half of the states, right? And then you actually take into account if you are in a relationship or not. And now it's like, okay, you could actually afford to live in here, but if it's a two-parent household, right, or a two-income household. And so the idea of managing money as a couple is it's no right answer, but there's obviously a few ways to hopefully end in success. So I love that you brought that up. But let's actually get kind of to where you are now, right? Obviously, CEO of Daffy, and how do we get there, right? Because you got a very extensive resume when it comes into the tech world.
Oh, well, I mean, that's flattering, and I have had the chance to work at some amazing companies, when each generation of technology, it's funny looking back on my career, from Apple to a company like eBay, LinkedIn, of course, for Web 2.0 and then Wealthfront. It's just been an embarrassment of riches and sort of in some ways in terms of the people I've gotten to work with and the problems, etcetera. Daffy comes out of, both a personal passion that I have around building these products that can help people with important problems, and a feeling that, well, there's a little bit of hubris with founders. You're going to have to forgive me. I wasn't convinced it was going to happen otherwise, right? It turns out we've had 15 years of fintech, of these amazing apps and services to help people spend better, save better, invest better. But where are the apps and services to help us give better? I mean, actually, giving is huge in the US. It's over half a trillion a year. I think last year was 557 billion. And over 370 billion of that's from individuals. So this is a big problem. I mean, that's like 2% of GDP. It's bigger than agriculture. And yet, I don't think a lot of people embrace the reality that this is a financial goal that means something to people. I mean, we teach our kids to give. This is not just, budgeting. I don't want to belittle anything, but saving, investing, et cetera, all important. But and so Daffy was really born on this idea of like, hey, those 60 million households in the US who give to charity every year. What if we build a great product for them? They can put aside money for charity proactively when it makes sense for them. They get that tax receipt, right, for the charitable deduction. The money's invested tax-free. And then anytime they're inspired to give, just a few taps on their phone, and the money can go to any legal charity in the US. So when that really crystallized, my co-founder and I really felt like that's a product worth building. That's a platform worth building. And that's how Daffy was born. Daffy actually literally stands for the Donor Advised Fund for You.
I love it. I love it. And one thing you might hear, right, is that it's a luxury to give, right? And so if the average person thinks you need to be rich to be generous, rich to give, how is Daffy not only, dispelling that, but also making it a lot more accessible for someone that is trying to be interested in giving?
It's funny. I think this has to do with the fascination our culture has right now around billionaires and beyond and what they're doing. We talk so much about what they do with money. We sometimes miss the forest for the trees about what most people's lives look like. It's a complete myth that only the wealthy give. I mean, in fact, a lot of studies actually show that the average person proportionally is more generous, right? I wasn't kidding. It's about 60 million households in the US every year that give to charity. And and that's meaningful to them, right? So it's not about dollars, it's about people. And so I was inspired. I have to say, I am inspired by other founders and other companies I've worked with in the past. I was on the board of this company, Acorns. Wonderful service. Now helps millions of people lead a better financial life, just by having this simple app and service that makes it easy to save, easy to spend better, et cetera. And so some of the inspiration for Daffy was we can do that for giving. The research shows that if you set a goal, if you're intentional about it, right, if you pre-commit, people give 32% more to charity. I mean, think of what that would mean out of those hundreds of billions of dollars. As big as that number is, we actually want to give more. The question is how to do it smart and in a financially prudent way. And the reality is most of giving is done today when someone asks you. Right. But how many of us would save for retirement well if we only put money aside for retirement when someone asked? That's not how it
Mm.
works. What you want is to say, "Oh, I have a goal for my retirement. I'm gonna have this much come out of my paycheck every couple of weeks." And over time, it'll build up. It turns out some of those lessons apply to giving too. You set a goal in Daffy, you can set a goal for your giving. You can put aside money every week or every month. Some of our members actually, they have income is not standard for people. More and more people have good years and not so good years. So putting money aside in the good years when your taxes are higher, right? And you actually have the money to give ensures that in the not so good years, you still have some money put aside for the organizations and causes you care about. And the truth is, if you talk to the organizations, that's what they really want. They want people who are going to support them for long periods of time. They don't just want one check, one donation. They want to build a community around the cause and the organization that they're passionate about.
That's very interesting. So let's actually kind of walk us through it, right? Say I'm a person that's making, I don't know, $80,000 a year, right? And I make it a point that I want to give 10% a year to charity. How exactly would I utilize Daffy?
Oh, well, first of all, you're describing a very generous person, which is fantastic, though.
Okay,
But
5%.
not
I don't know.
no,
Who
no,
you
no,
tip?
not unusual, actually.
Okay. Okay.
It turns out, so there's a couple options there, right? Like, so you said this person, do they always make 80,000 a year? Or is it the kind of job where there's some years where are better or worse? I would probably say putting a little more money aside in the years that you make more money it's smart for your taxes and an easier way to do it. But it's amazing. You can treat it just like retirement or any other financial goal, right? You could decide to put aside, like you mentioned, if it was $8,000 a year, you can do that simple math. If you get paid, monthly, right? That turns into what? Sorry, I'm doing this math on the fly. $600 to $700 or something like that every month. Just have it come out of your paycheck and go to Daffy. You pick a portfolio. It's kind of like a 401k for charity. It could be that simple. And the only advantage is, of course, besides being tax-free, is that you're not limited. You don't have to wait to use the money until you're, at retirement age, 59 and a half or something like that. You can actually, anytime you're inspired to give, tap, tap, tap on your phone, have the money go to the charity of your choice.
That's awesome. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have more with Adam Nash of Daffy. All right, welcome back to Financial Freestyle. I'm Ross Mack, and I'm talking to Adam Nash. So, Adam, quick question, right? What exactly is a donor advised fund?
Oh, no, this is a great question. I mean, obviously, we named the company Daffy, the donor advised fund for you, but a lot of people haven't heard of a donor advised fund before, which is kind of
Mhm.
amazing because they've been around for a very long time, more than 50 years. Basically, a
Wow.
donor advised fund is just a tax advantaged account for charity. You can think of it as like an IRA or 401k for charity, right? And it's designed for that. You can put money aside in this account. You immediately get the charitable deduction for your taxes. And then that money can be invested tax-free in any number of portfolios. And then anytime you want that money to go to a charity, tap, 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 you tell the donor advised fund where that money should go and they send it off. So it's really a fantastic product. I honestly believe that Daffy aside, everyone who gives to charity regularly should have a donor advised fund. And a lot of what Daffy does is just makes it simple and easy for you to get started with a little account for money put aside for charity. I mean, it is one of the oldest ideas, right? The idea of putting money aside every year for those less fortunate than yourself is a pretty old idea. Daffy just puts a modern tech wrapper over what is a fantastic financial product that most people haven't heard of.
No, 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 no. I think you just truly broke it down. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't just have to invest money, though, right? You have
Oh,
the ability to invest maybe stocks, et cetera, other investments,
yeah, yeah. Our mission at Daffy is
or
actually to help
donate.
people be more generous more often. And so anything that people want to give, we're super excited to help them do that. So you can just use cash. You could use a card, a debit card, credit card. You can even use Apple Pay. But there's immense tax benefits. So many people now work for companies where they get some compensation in stock. We have a lot of people who are investing in crypto. And when you donate stock or crypto to charity, you get a double tax win. Because if you've held the investment more than a year, first of all, you get to deduct the full market value of that investment today. Not what you invested in it, years ago, but what it's worth today. And second, you'll never pay the capital gains taxes on that gain. So you get this double win. And so the problem is most charities are not that big. Most charities can't take stock donations. They can't take your ETF or your mutual fund, and they certainly can't take crypto in most cases. But if you use a service like Daffy, we take everything, right? So, we support every crypto that Coinbase supports, right? Any ETF, right? Any stock. So if you happen to be fortunate enough to be sitting on an investment that has a large capital gain on it, is an incredibly smart financial move to use that instead of cash to give to charity, because you get those extra tax benefits. And using an app like Daffy makes it trivial to do. It literally can take seconds.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So I definitely kind of want to pick your brain uh as from the lens of like an actual founder as well, right?
Mhm.
So like, I speak with a decent amount of tech founders, and I always am curious when it comes to starting a company, right? What is the mindset, right? Are you solving a problem? Are you adding new technology to things that are existing? Like, kind of what was the reason you started Daffy? And let's kind of talk about, how you went from idea to true business.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and this has been a lot of my career, is like when you think about building a great product, it's easy to talk about the technology. It's less easy, but important to talk about the design, right, and the real product you're building. But the truth is, if you don't wrap a product in a great organization, in a great business, it won't go forever. You won't have the people and the platform to really solve the problem you're going after. So I think what I tell founders, the basic things to think about in the beginning is, what is the product? What's the market for this product? I spend a lot of time talking to founders, not about the technology, but who is this designed for? Where do you really create value? And then building a business around that, you have to have some eye for, wait, why hasn't this happened already? Why now? Right? What are you seeing that all the incumbents aren't seeing? Right? They have money, they have resources, they have smart people, they have customers. Why aren't they building this? And I just happen to be a student, if you go back to Clay Christensen, the innovator's dilemma, um, I always believe that there has to be a reason. What has to be happening for it to be a great opportunity is that the best customers for the existing companies don't want this. But there's a huge base of other people who want something simpler, easier, maybe with a different business model. And the existing companies can't see it because their best customers aren't asking for it. And to me, when you find one of those opportunities, you really have an opportunity to be transformational. I mean, so for Daffy, it turns out most donor advised funds charge fees that they borrowed from the investment industry. They charge you a percentage of assets. Even Vanguard, which I love. I love Vanguard as an organization. I love their products. They charge 60 basis points, 0.6% on their donor advised fund. And they have a minimum of $25,000. Why? Because if you're one of the existing institutions and you have a business model based on making a percentage of assets, you're going to chase the biggest accounts. You want to acquire the most assets. And so at Daffy, we actually were very purposeful. It wasn't just the product and the technology. We said, no, let's align our business model with giving, with those 60 million households who don't have millions of dollars, but give a few hundred or a few $1,000s to charity every year. And so we make it free to get started, under $100. Most of our members pay $3 a month. It's flat. And we have a family plan and a higher tier that costs a little bit more. But we really tried to align ourselves on what we thought was the best business to support a product like this, which is a revenue model that's aligned around people staying with us for very long periods of time and making giving something they do not just once, but every year, possibly for decades.
That's amazing, right? You're in a very interesting place because you're at the intersection of fintech and philanthropy. Where do you see that growing in the future?
Oh, there's so much to do. I am so excited about the potential in this area. And part of that's self-serving, right? I care about giving. I care about philanthropy. And, I'm very serious. As a parent, I have 4 children. It's not like other financial goals. It's even more important. It's not just a budget item, although it should be. We teach our kids about giving, right? Most of us grew up knowing that it's not all for you, right? That actually there's other people out there. And so I am very passionate about the topic, but I think we're at an exciting time. I mean, the truth is, after 15 years in fintech, the platforms that are available, I mean, I can't tell you 15 years ago how hard it was to build one of these applications and services. We've learned so much. The fact that I can leverage platforms from companies like Plaid, Sardine, these might be companies that most people haven't heard of, but what it means is to build a new financial service that has great security, that has great features, right? Think about how hard it was to imagine 15 years ago a computer managing a portfolio for you. But now Daffy can have, 16, 17 different portfolios, everything from cash to bonds to index funds. We even have crypto for people who want it. And we can do that all automatically in software, not because we're so amazing, although, Alejandro's team really is very impressive. But we can build those features and capabilities in weeks and months because of all these other companies and platforms out there. And so I think we're going to see an immense amount of innovation in the space. At Daffy, this might sound simple. Before Daffy, there wasn't a donor advised fund with a family plan, right? So many people, we see people with their siblings, with their parents, grandparents want to teach their grandkids about giving. What tech product doesn't have a family plan? I mean, I'm inundated this as a parent, like the request from Apple or Xbox. I get a lot of Xbox requests, that sort of thing. But why not for giving? So I just think the innovation we're going to see in this category is just phenomenal, and I think it's meaningful because the truth is, people always think about the donation, about the benefit to the organization, because they're going to use that money to have impact and do something good. I think people underestimate the value that people find on feeling like they as a donor have an impact. That they didn't just talk about something, they did something. The amount of dollars actually doesn't matter. Whatever's meaningful to you is what really matters. But I think technology is going to have a huge role to play. And we just rolled out some new features that are based on some of the new AI platforms, et cetera. A lot of the advantages that the ultra wealthy had, teams of people to advise them on giving or kind of make something happen when they're inspired to give. We can now put these innovations in an app that's available to everyone.
That's it for this episode. I just want to give a warm thank you to Mr. Adam Nash for a phenomenal conversation, right? Being at the intersection of philanthropy and tech. But that's it for this episode. Make sure you like, subscribe. If you see this QR code, just hit it so you can watch other podcasts on this exact network. Until then, guys, we'll see you next week. I'm Ross Mack, and this is Financial Freestyle.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.